to It's Okay to Be Gay, the podcast.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to this episode of the It's Okay to Be Gay podcast. This mini episode, we will be introducing one of our fabulous co-hosts on the show, and I'm so glad to be able to share a little bit about her and her background and how we know one another. My name is David Van Etten-Witt, and this co-host today that we're going to be focusing on is my wonderful cousin, Miss Veronica Witt.
Hey, David.
Howdy, howdy. Hey, thanks so much for carving out some time for me today. I appreciate you.
Absolutely.
And for all of you out there listening, just want to clarify very quickly, so there's no confusion later. Veronica is not actually a member of the LGBTQ community.
Straight as an arrow.
Straight as an arrow, right. But she is a fabulous human being, somebody that I am very blessed to be related to. And I'm so glad that we have a chance to chat today a little bit and just let people know who are listening why you are here. So, Veronica, tell me just a little bit about your background and where in your life you've been a player in the LGBTQ community.
Yeah. So I grew up in northeast Wisconsin, kind of rural area for most of my growing up on a small farm. I did attend Catholic school my entire grade school career. I do not align with being Catholic, however. I do appreciate the traditions and what we've had in our family since we both come from a very Catholic background. There's a lot of traditions and things like that, and I always will respect that, but I do not align myself as being Catholic, pretty much agnostic. So I went to a small liberal arts college in my same hometown, where it was a very inclusive environment. In high school, there was maybe one, maybe two gay people, one of whom was actually one of my very, very closest friends. And hopefully he will be on this show later. But in college, it was the time I was very much exposed to not just gay and lesbian, but, all non-binary kind of forms and different colors of the flag with LGBTQ spectrum, trans people. And it was a very, for being in the middle of a pretty conservative town, my college was very, very inclusive and a very good island for inclusivity and kind of just accepting of all gender expressions. So it was just kind of the norm. I didn't think anything was odd about it. They're just people and friends and classmates, and I'm lucky to have made some connections that way. I currently work in healthcare in ophthalmology, and we do come across, I work on the pediatric side mostly, so we do come across a lot of families of different setups, different, same gender parents, some trans parents, a lot of adopted kids. You can get all kinds of arrangements with that. So, so I feel like I need permission to be called an ally, but I'd like to say I'm an ally for all LGBTQ people, because I do try to stand up for what's right. And even if there are people who might not agree, they're welcome to their thoughts, but I will always protect those, on the LGBTQ flag, to live in peace. So, I've grown to love and have a very couple close friends who are on LGBTQ, and also, of course, you, David, as the token gay cousin.
Appreciate the shout out. Yeah, for sure. And I think it's very telling that you and I both grew up in similar conservative, religious family backgrounds, and especially with our grandparents being, devout Catholics, and our uncles and my aunts, all going to church regularly, all went to, Catholic schools when they were children, and then raised their families according to their traditions and everything else. And there's nothing wrong with people who believe a certain thing and accept those teachings and practice that sort of thing. And both of us, though, at some point realized in our life that the that golden rule of do unto others as you would have them do unto you wasn't always echoed in maybe the teachings or beliefs that those, religious organizations and, bring with them.
Absolutely.
And I think that it's very telling of your person and your character that even despite having been raised in that little, conservative bubble of a small town, that you recognized as a, older teenager and young adult, that there was something that didn't quite click with what we are, practice what you preach. And there was a gap in there somewhere of this idea that everybody should be loved and everybody should be treated fairly and respected and whatever, except for unless you're in this group or unless you fall into this category. Right?
Absolutely. You very much summed up what was going on in my brain. I mean, even as young as being 10, 11 years old and going through, if you're familiar with Catholic sacraments, if you will, their reconciliation. I don't know if it's across the board, but typically around age 10, 11, around fifth grade-ish, you can have this sacrament that you sit for reconciliation. I very much remember questioning because I felt like you said there's gaps. So I remember even being very young and questioning it, and just the older I got, the more I realized that was not what I aligned with. So.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with a particular faith. There's nothing wrong with people who subscribe to a certain way of living. Yep. And the purpose and intention of our podcast is to not show that they're wrong and we're right, or that this group is wrong and we're right. And it's across the board with all sorts of different religions and faiths and backgrounds and practices and countries and whatever else. But the intention and purpose of our podcast is to let people out there who are part of the LGBTQ community know that it is okay that you are gay, and it doesn't always have to mean that you fit perfectly inside this one particular organization's or religion's bubble or group or whatever. But I just want to go back to when you were talking about you had to prove that you're an ally. Also, no, absolutely not, because from day one, when I was willing to accept myself and my sexuality, I knew immediately that you would be somebody who would never judge me and never question that decision on my part. And I'm sure that any of your friends and other family members which we have a number of other family members, immediate and direct family members, who are also part of the LGBTQ community, none of them were ever worried, I'm sure, that Veronica was going to think differently of us when we came out, or think differently of who we were, or question our character when they find out that we were gay or lesbian or whatever. So knowing you for the 30 so many years we've known one another, I know your tremendous amount of love and respect that you have for people of all ages and all different walks of life, people who are, shining colors on this side of this flag or that side of that flag. There's no doubt in my mind that you belong in the ally category for the LGBTQ community.
Yay.
So,
I'll consider that official.
Yeah. I dub thee.
Blessing. Thank you.
Sir Veronica.
So honored. I'm so honored.
Yeah, but one of the reasons too, and we might have talked about this one of our previous episodes, but that I asked Veronica to work on this podcast with me is because of her dynamic energy, and not only that, but just the encounters that she's had in her professional life and in her social life, and especially living in Madison, Wisconsin, which there are just little bubbles of members of our LGBTQ community scattered around most major cities, but especially that town is very colorful.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so I know you have connections out there, and I'm very much looking forward to you being able to bring in your friends to share their stories on our show. And I know that we already have several guests who you've reached out to and are going to be on our program. So I appreciate that, and the connections that you'll bring there too is just invaluable. So,
yeah, definitely. I'm happy to help get the word out that it's okay to be gay.
That's right. So I just wanted also for you to have a chance. I know that you talked about several of your close friends who are part of the LGBTQ community, but was there anybody that you have worked with or in your life that you found that they came to you for advice or solace or consolation or just acceptance when they were going through this process? Maybe you could touch on, a specific instance or somebody, give names, but, just a specific example of where your character has shown through in that regard.
The first, I would say it's a kind of place where I could support a friend, an LGBTQ friend, was in high school. My friend was not out to his parents at that point. And I don't believe he was out to any of his siblings at that time either. And he can correct me if I'm wrong, but I very much remember having, conversations with him and again, being under the umbrella of this Catholic religion was an extra added kind of part of the equation for his fear in coming out and his, I don't know if it delayed it anymore, but he did come out while he was still in high school. He was very confident with who he was and very comfortable with who he was, but yet he still needed to grapple with telling his parents and that fear that comes with. And I can imagine that anybody across the board of any kind of LGBTQ alignment, that there will always be a fear in telling the people that are close to you, even if you think that they are going to be the most accepting people. There's probably some fear in the back of mind. And especially with my friend being so young and in high school, still living at home, that it adds an extra layer because, what were his options? If, he was very legitimately worried that he was going to be maybe kicked out, at the time, I think I recall. And I think just, being able to listen to him and it was his path to take, but being there while he grappled with all of those things. And then eventually he, told his parents, and his parents said, "We love you just the way you are." And I remember being so relieved for him because that's all, this build up that I wasn't even, that wasn't my build up, but I was with him. And so I felt that for him, I felt that stress along with him. And so I was very relieved when that was the parents' response. And they're fabulous people. I don't keep in contact with his family at all, but I just very much remember being warmed, by hearing that story and being there for him. Otherwise,
and I think that echoes very true for a lot of people who realize and accept themselves earlier in life, junior high and high school years, that probably the first people that end up finding out are close friends or somebody that they've known for a while. And it might be easier to tell those close friends than to initially tell family. And I think one of the reasons is that, well, first of all, you're somebody that can be trusted, right? And then, so there's that connection, but also if you react adversely, you're just losing a close friend at that point. It's not family member, right? And so it's a safer bet that when you come out to somebody that's just an acquaintance or a friend, it's a little less nerve-wracking for the people who are coming out, and then there's a little less to lose maybe than if you come out to your mom and she disowns you, like that's you're a family member or something like that. So I think that's the case for a lot of us, is that the first people that we end up telling, the first people that we end up sharing this with and trusting with this information and these stories are our friends, because it's a safe.
It's a safer bet. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I think that it should be our family that we do come out to first, or that we do tell these things if, that's what you decide to do, to, bring this up in a way that it's like a coming out and not just letting it be part of who you are, which both things are acceptable. But it's weird that it's not more generally and wildly accepted by the people that we know love us the most, there's still that.
But it's the biggest risk, right? I mean, and that's coming from, I'm very much the type that, save for a chosen few within our family that, I absolutely love and adore, and you are my family, my blood. I am very much the type of person that I have family members that I have had to cut out of my life because of toxic traits. And it's really hard, but I also very much align with there are friends who are more family than family.
And that's true.
So, and that's completely a personal thing. And whoever you feel closest with and safest with, obviously, is going to be the, who you can come out to first. And I know you're such a family oriented person, David, like family is everything to you. I absolutely know that. And, but I can see where some people would completely, they wouldn't even entertain telling their, parents first, because they might very well have parents who are outwardly, anti-gay and who don't hide it. So absolutely, that would be like soul crushing to them. But at the same time, that can also be the line of, where do I, keep healthy people in my life,
Exactly.
Which, gosh, that's such a hard road. But in order to be true to yourself and to be the kindest to yourself, and, they always say, surround yourself with the people who make you better. That unfortunately has to happen. And I'm sure there's plenty of times, and I'm sure we'll hear stories of people in their coming out stories that unfortunately was the result, that
right.
was the fallout, unfortunately, for better or worse. But
yeah,
anyway.
for sure. So I look forward to you being part of those conversations and you joining me as we continue to, unravel all these different stories from all these different people that we're going to be hearing from. I wanted to let you kind of wind down with letting people know your current hobbies and exciting things about yourself.
Yay.
So what gets you going, V?
Oh gosh, other than coffee and Red Bull? Yikes.
So some really fun hobbies and some really fun activities.
So as David said, and I don't think I mentioned earlier, I do currently live in Madison, Wisconsin. I do have my dog, Yellow Lab Bowie, and I do have one cat right now. Unfortunately, I usually have multiples, but rest in peace, Mr., who I recently had to put down, one of my cats. But Bowie, my dog, keeps me active. We like to go to parks and whatnot and walks and just gets me outside. I'm also a very active member in the disc golf community. I technically am a sponsored player. So I competitively played disc golf, kind of in between some injuries at the time. But the disc golf community has been a great place where I have met a lot of people from different walks of life. And so I'm hoping that I can get some of my fellow disc golfers here. But yeah, I do photography on the side. I'm teaching myself how to play a drum set. I'm just, living the single adult dream, I guess.
You go. Yeah, a woman of many talents.
Master of none.
Oh, whatever. I counted the number of gold medal ribbons on your disc golf wall the other day, so don't tell me that you're master of none. I know
beginner's luck. It's fun. I enjoy it.
For sure. Well, Veronica, thank you so much again for sharing a little bit about yourself. I'm very excited to be working on this podcast with you, and I'm looking forward to bringing a lot of your friends and having you help them tell their stories with all of our listeners out there. So I appreciate it. I hope that you have a great rest of your weekend, and we will catch up with you again soon.
Excellent.
All right. For all you out there, thanks so much for joining us. Have a great rest of the day.